Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very senior and accomplished leader from Norway, Mr. Erik Solheim. Erik, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mr. Solheim is a green diplomat. He's the 6th Executive Development at the UN Environment. He's a well-known global leader in environment and development, as well as an experienced peace negotiator. He was the Norwegian Minister for Environment and International Development from 2005 to 2012, and he sits on the boards of several organizations from around the world. So, Erik, let me start by asking you, tell me about your own amazing journey.
Well, I think my interest in the environment basically comes from my upbringing. I did grow up in Oslo. It's an average city in many ways, but it's unique, I think, globally in one respect, and that is if you put yourself on a tram or a metro from the city center, in 20 minutes in every direction, you are out in the forest, where you can go for walks in summer or can go skiing in winter, and of course where you can see moose and fox and many animals. The forests are not as amazing as tropical forest in India or Brazil, but still it's a beautiful, fantastic place, and it kind of gives you that love of nature, which is the driving force for any environmentalist.
Absolutely. I think Norway is one of the prettiest countries I have ever visited. But
I'm happy to hear. Yes, we have a beautiful country for sure. Our fjords are absolutely amazing. I would invite everyone to come and see. When it comes to cultural attractions, and many other places are better. But when it comes to nature, we can claim to be one of the most pretty countries in the world, for sure.
Absolutely. So, Erik, how do you define a green diplomat, and how do you define green business?
We are at the absolute crossing point in human history, because in the past, in the 19th and 20th century, if you wanted to develop, as everyone wants, you need to destroy nature. There was no other way to develop than base your development on coal. And if you really wanted to develop, it came with a huge destruction of nature. But fortunately, that's so much the past. Now in the 21st century, we have all the policies, all the finances, and all the technologies we need to go fast into development, bring every single individual on planet Earth out of extreme poverty, while doing it in a way which do not destroy nature. The best example is, of course, that solar energy is now the cheapest energy in the world. It was just the statistics from the United States of America saying that wherever you are in the US, if you switch from your old coal plant into building a new solar or wind factory, you save money, create more jobs, and do good for Mother Earth at the same time. So we have an enormous new opportunity to go green and develop at the same time, which was not there for our forefathers and foremothers.
Very interesting. And, given the fact that you are from Norway, you're Norwegian, but I still wanted to ask you, what got you interested in the area of the environment and sustainability?
I think it came with this, so to say, law of nature being imprinted in my DNA from childhood. But then realizing that the big challenge in the 21st century is exactly this. We need to develop. We need to make a happy, good, richer, better life, more healthy life for every human being. But we need to do it in a way which do not destroy the one planet which we are all living on. If you want inspiration, look to the old Indians. They venerated nature. They venerated nature to such an extent that in Hinduism, many gods are half human, half man. Ganesh is half elephant, half human. Hanuman is half monkey, half human. To show the enormous respect you need to show to Mother Earth.
Well said. Well said. So let's talk about climate change now. This is something the world has suddenly started to realize, and now with all these crazy things happening in climate, everyone seems to have realized how important this is. But my first question to you, Erik, is what are some of the challenges we face when it comes to climate change with regard to food, health, and the planet?
The challenges are enormous, but I'm mainly focused on the opportunities because I see climate change as an enormous opportunity to create a better society, create more jobs, and bring people out of poverty. But if you want to focus on the problems, I think it's mainly about water. Some areas of the planet will be drier, others will be wetter. That may have enormous impact on agriculture. It's about extreme weather events, cyclones, and storms of different sorts, which may destroy human life. But we should not be so focused on all the problems, because that just makes people a little bit passive, and they tend to give up because the problem seems so big. Let's focus on the enormous opportunities to make climate change a fantastic way to create a better society and more prosperity.
And recently, a little while ago, Bill Gates had said that we only have 10 more years left. I'd love to get your perspective.
We need to act now, because actions now is what will define our future. However, yes, it's true, we need to act very fast, but it's also so that the power of states and governments are much bigger in the past, so we are much better prepared to handle the effects of climate change. There will be a warmer planet. We just need to make sure that the warming is not kind of exploding into maybe 2.5, 3 degrees, but keep it at a level we can handle, and then strengthen our government so that they can protect people, and strengthen civil society so that we can help out each other in the communities. And there are some reasons to be optimistic here, because yes, we have more extreme weather, more storms in the world, but they tend to kill, fortunately, much fewer people, simply because we are much better prepared. Example is the big cyclone in the Indian state of Odisha 3 years ago. It was an enormous force of nature and lots of destruction, but only a very limited number of people were killed, because weather forecast was precise, because the chief minister of the state put up buses to bring everyone out of the catastrophe area, and because there was no one dying from hunger or disease after the event. So yes, we need to act suddenly now, but we also need to strengthen society to be better prepared.
Well said. There is another aspect that I wanted to get your perspective on, and that is the large corporations, or the very large corporations, are all talking about climate change. A lot of discussion is happening in boardrooms. How much is actually being achieved?
Quite a lot is achieved. I mean, let's focus on those companies who actually do something. I mean, there are oil companies, coal companies who greenwash and try to speak as if they do a lot, but they're not doing anything. But to look to the more positive ones. I mean, Microsoft has promised to be carbon neutral by 2030 and to compensate for all emissions in the history of the company, and they are acting. Because the economy of Microsoft is much bigger than the economy of most states in the world. So it matters. In Indonesia, there's a company called RGE. It's the biggest paper and pulp company in the world, and one of the biggest palm oil companies in the world. Yes, in the past it was a company which destroyed quite a lot of nature. Now they have zero deforestation in the value chains. They even protect a huge forest in the Indonesian island of Sumatra. And what was a company which caused problems is now part of the solutions to the world. In Europe, IKEA, the big furniture maker, is much ahead of any government when it comes to circular economy. A Danish company, Ørsted, what was once a 100% oil company, is now a 100% wind maker. So there are so many success stories of companies who have been able to change, and they will drive the new world, and those who are late to history, they will lose.
And, many years ago, I remember reading an article in which former Prime Minister Mahathir had made a comment saying that there is so much pressure on me to not cut my rainforests in East Malaysia, but that is my wealth. That is how I will pull my country out of poverty and take it into developed countries. I'd love to get your thoughts, because I'm sure other politicians are thinking like that as well.
Absolutely, but that was so much the perspective of the last century. We are now moving into a completely new future, and a neighboring country, Malaysia, Indonesia, which has a much bigger rainforest, last year was down to 0. There was no deforestation in Indonesia. Fantastic achievement. Why did it happen? Because the Jokowi government of Indonesia put up all the right policies for this to happen, and because big companies like RG, which I just mentioned, they put in place the right action from business. So while Mahathir was right on this 20 years ago, he's now close to 100 years old, and of course the world is driving in a completely new direction, where we can combine forest protection with the prosperity for the people of Malaysia, which Mahathir wants to achieve.
And, in the same thought as we just spoke about, it is often said that climate change is a victim of politics. What are your thoughts on this? Do you see political leaders coming together?
That's exactly right. If we put in place the right policies, we will be able to handle climate change. We have all the technologies, I mean, they will improve. That's solar and wind energy, electric cars, they're all there. We do have all the technologies we need. The big financial institutions of the world have all the finances we need. And we do know what to do. But what we need to do is to make sure that the political leaders make the right decisions. Some of them get a lot right. I mean, Prime Minister Modi of India do a lot of good stuff. President Xi of China, Biden in the United States recently. But of course, you also have a number of political leaders who don't get it and are very slow. And they need to be replaced by greener politicians who understand the 21st century.
Well said. The other thing that I now wanted to move to was the pandemic. And I was reading many articles where they said that the pandemic was actually good for Mother Nature, and that Mother Nature got a chance to heal herself because human beings like you and me were closed inside our homes. I want to get your thoughts on how can, your thoughts on Mother Nature being able to heal herself, and what can we as human beings do to allow this to happen?
No, absolutely. I believe, horrible as the pandemic was,
yes,
it had the effect of showing us the ability of Mother Earth to come back.
Correct.
I mean, you saw pink penguins walking down the streets of Cape Town in South Africa. You saw deer coming back in Japanese cities. You saw bears coming back in European cities. In the great national parks of the United States, people say that the wildlife has a party now because there are no humans to disturb them. And in northern Indian cities like in Punjab, where they haven't seen the Himalayas for 20 years because of pollution, all of a sudden you can wake up in the morning and see the fantastic beauty of the Himalayas.
Absolutely.
So I think this told people a story of the ability of nature to come back, and that we need to act fast for this to happen.
You're so right. We even saw animals come out on the golf courses, which we hadn't seen for a long, long time. So you're very Now my next couple of questions are for a lot of the young people who will be listening to our conversation, Erik. What can each one of us do on a daily basis to make ourselves more aware and accountable?
I think it's quite a lot individuals can do, but of course, the main responsibility to act is with the top political leaders and business leaders of the world. But the individuals can help politicians and business to get it right. We can vote for the green political parties and personalities. We can start buying the products which are green and avoid those companies who don't go green. We can do tree planting. Everyone can plant a tree. The chief minister of the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh is planting one tree every day. That matters. And we can demand changes in our neighborhood. If you're a student at the school, go to the university leadership and tell them, oh, we have a lot of roofs in this university. Why don't you put solar panels on the roofs? So act in your society, tree planting, solar, but also acting politically by buying the right products and electing the right leaders.
Wonderful. My next question is on technology. I'd love to get your perspective on how is technology supporting climate change?
Technology is absolutely critical to the change. I mean, if we don't develop the technologies, we will come nowhere, but they're already there. I mean, look to electric cars as an example. I recall the first electric cars. They were very, very tiny, very particular. It was not a real car. It was a small or cramped place. Now the most modern electric cars, they go 600-700 kilometers without charging. They are as big as the gasoline cars, and they're much more technologically advanced.
Yeah.
I'll just give you one example. I mean, here in Norway, where we have quite a lot of cold winters, if you have an electric car, you can just notify on your app that you want the car to be warm when you go down to the car, and it's warm. While with the old cars, it will take 10 minutes to freezing in the car before you start driving. So no one has ever bought an electric car want to go back to the old ones. In Norway now, 90% of all new cars sold are electric.
Wow.
Because government have the right policies, but of course when people see these benefits, they jump on them. Exactly the same will happen in the United States, in India, China, everywhere. As soon as people realize the benefits. And of course the technology gradually needs to improve, and very soon you will have an electric car which goes 1,000 kilometers without any charge, and it's more comfortable and better than the old one. This is just one example. Of course solar energy, wind energy is now tenths of the price of what it was a decade ago. And that matters a lot, because then you can go into solar, not just to do good for the environment, but simply to save money and provide more jobs.
Very interesting. And your response gives me a segue to my next question, which is on Norway. I mean, your country has been a leader in several of the environment-related challenges the world faces. What are you doing right in Norway, and what can other countries learn from Norway?
Let's be honest, we are doing something right in Norway and something completely wrong in Norway. What we have got right is the transformation into electric cars and electric ferries. Look, China has many more electric cars than Norway. But we have more electric cars per capita than any nation in the world, thanks to good policies by the government. Exactly the same as happened with ferries. You have any number of ferries crossing fjords. Right. Some of these ferries are now even automatic. I mean, there are no human to run them. They go automatically between crossing fjords, but they're electric. This is a great achievement where others can learn from Norway. Norway also started with Indonesia and Brazil, the global Latin American state of Ghana, the global program to protect the rainforest, which is the most amazing ecosystem on the planet. And that was also a huge, brave achievement of the Norwegian government. What do we get wrong? We cling to oil. Norway is an oil-producing nation. Politicians and many others are now so happy that they believe that they can continue the oil age for maybe 10 more years. After the war in Ukraine, I mean, while we will supercharge renewables, also people believe that oil age may last a little longer. And if we do not get out of oil, Norway will lose. Not just with the planet use environmentally, but we will lose because we will not get into all the amazing new jobs which will come. We come late to history, and when all these jobs are grabbed by India, by China, by others, then Norway will be the loser because we cling to the oil for far too long.
Well said. So I have time for two more questions. My next question, Erik, is on the Belt and Road Green Development Institute. You are the president of the Belt and Road Green Development Institute. Tell me a little bit about the work this institute does. And as such a major project around the world, what are some of the challenges you have faced when it comes to green development?
Belt and Road is, of course, the enormous Chinese foreign investment, which are by far the biggest investments into the development everywhere in the world. About 130 nations are part of the Belt and Road. The United States is not, and India is not, but most other nations are part of it. And we try to make it green. We had some fantastic achievements, like when President Xi decide that China will stop all overseas coal investments, which of course means that China will invest a lot in solar, wind, green hydrogen, and all the other necessary technologies. So what are the difficulties? Let me point to two. One is the relationship between China and the West, and in particular China and the United States of America. That is very sour at the moment, a lot of tensions, a lot of frictions. That makes life a lot more difficult for everyone. No nation in the world wants to make a choice between the United States and China. Absolutely. Every nation wants to be close to both the United States and China, have investment, culture exchange, people-to-people contact, travel with both of them. So to avoid this geopolitical tension is one key area. And the other key area, which is not so much related to Belt and Road, but which is central to everyone, we need to make environment a people's movement. It cannot just be for young people in the cities, urban green people. It must also be for the older people, for the people in the countryside, for people who don't want to listen to any long PowerPoint presentations, which tend to be quite boring. Simply to make it a movement for men and women, urban and rural, young and old, for everyone, because everyone has a love for nature. But so we need to make it a fair transition, appealing to everyone, a people's movement for the environment.
Well said. And my last question to Erik, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible understanding of greening, climate change, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away?
Number one is exactly what I said. We really need to make a people's movement, engaging with everyone. I mean, in some nations, we now have a very, very dangerous divide. In the United States, if you are a young woman of Asian origin in, say, San Francisco, the chance of voting for the Democrats is 90%. If you're an old industrial worker in the countryside of Oklahoma, West Virginia, the chance of voting for Trump is 90%. And you find similar developments in basically every part of the world. It's very dangerous. We need to stick together, and then we need to make the environment a people's movement. Secondly, business is core. We tend to focus on diplomacy, but much more important is business, because the main driver of the green development in the world today is the political economy. Yes, you need decisions by, say, Prime Minister Modi of India or state ministers of Indian states, but then you need to engage with Ambani, Adani, all the other main players in Indian business. And thirdly, you need really to mobilize every citizen, because people need to make the demands to business and politics. If citizens are not really mobilized, it's hard to make change. But on the positive note, the big changes in the past, say solving the problem of the ozone layer, which is not completely solved. There's no problem with the ozone layer any longer. We come back in the shape it was. That was the big environment issue when I came into politics. And it's resolved because citizens stood up and said, we don't want to live this way any longer. And then they engaged with political leaders and business, and we got the change we need. So I'm very optimistic that we will be able to solve these problems, but you need a citizens movement, and you need to engage with business. And that's really what's driving change in the world, not so much the diplomacy.
Amazing. And on that very, very encouraging and positive note, and your 3 amazing lessons, make greening a people's movement. Business is important, and I think it's important for political leadership and business to be able to work together on this, and it is critical to be able to mobilize every citizen. Thank you, Erik, for speaking to me about your own amazing journey, about so many different aspects of climate change, and also about the Belt and Road Green Development Institute. Thank you again, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You Videocast and Podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called you.